NASA leadership under Nanok and the Council of Governors Secretariat are the people who are frustrating these negotiations.
126 days of the nurses' strike, still no sign of light at the end of the tunnel. And it's not only the nurses who are frustrated by this. It has boiled down to the student nurses in this country. And we will definitely get a first-hand account from one of my guests here in studio. I'll just start by introducing them. Jones Osore is the treasurer of the Kenya Student Nurses Chapter, as well as the chairman of the Student Nurses Association at the Kenyatta University. Jones, thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
And we also have Boaz Onchari, who is a nurse as well as the chairperson of the Kenya National Union of Nurses, the Nairobi branch. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. 126 days, not just the nurses, the students as well. What is the situation on your end?
To say, as a matter of fact, students are really suffering. You know, it's 4 months down the line, and yet the people who are supposed to be talking about this issue are playing silence, you see. And they have continued to deny students the fundamental right of education as granted by the Constitution. And we are just here to tell the media and to tell the country at large that the effects of this strike are far more than what people see. You see, students are being affected. You see, we are having nurses interns who have not yet been on duty for 4 months right now, you see. And that means they're going to prolong their stay. We are having over 750 degree students who are not sure whether they'll graduate this year. We're having like 3,000 degree nurses who have had their clinical teaching being compromised. At the same time, we're having over 8,000 diploma students who have not yet undertaken their clinical experience, you see. And all this just to frustrate the efforts of the Kenyan nursing students in order to be trained well, to become competent, in order to meet the sustainable development goals. So this is a challenge that we as students are facing, and we have just come here to raise the plight of student nurses.
Does this mean that even the student nurses for the past 4 months, not much has been happening for them, for the past 4 months that nurses have been on strike?
Yes, for the past 4 months, we have had students having to go back home. I can give a classic example of KU, where I've been from. You see, we are supposed to be undertaking our clinical experience, but because we don't have the nurses in the wards who serve as clinical instructors, who serve as mentors, they're supposed to guide us. But when they are not found in the hospital, therefore it means that our clinical teaching cannot go forth. And also, let me give another classic example of Meru KMTC. You see, they reported to school last month. But because the Meru hospital is not functioning, the students are forced to idle around, you see. And that is 1 month and 2 weeks down the line, they have not yet undergone teaching. So that just shows the implication of this strike on students. And that is why we have come here to seek the relevant stakeholders that they should come in and solve this deadlock as soon as possible, because the student is suffering.
All right, Boaz, for you, 126 days, there has been a lot of grandstanding from the nurses, from the county governments. We're not hearing much from the national government. The last time we had anything to the effect of the nurses' strike from the CS, Cleopa Mailu, he said, go back, then we can negotiate. As long as you're in the streets, we are not ready to negotiate any further with you. What is the way forward now?
Thank you, Akisa. First, before I respond to your query, I could want to sympathize with Kenyans, and especially the people of Tiati in Baringo constituency. The suffering there, the dying of people, the kids and the moms, we're very sorry. And I think this is, it is on record that this strike has really brought a lot of suffering to Kenyans. Having said so, 126 days, going back to what we had proposed in our CBA, initially we had 7 issues that we wanted our employer to address to. When our negotiators went to the drawing board, they negotiated until we came to a conclusion that there are 3 matters that they need to give us, and then we go back to work. Out of the 7, we are down to 3, but still our employer are on a hard stand. So I think the CS is not really sincere to Kenyans when he says that we are not ready to negotiate when we have already negotiated, and what is only remaining is they come on board.
So what is the disconnect?
Actually, the disconnect is just the government is not willing and it's not ready through the CS. Because we have negotiated, we don't need to go back to negotiate. We only need a document signed and registered in court. Yeah. So when the CS comes out and says that we cannot negotiate any further, yeah, it is true we cannot negotiate because the document was negotiated. It only needs the signing, taken to court, and awaits implementation. Yeah.
So does this mean even the experienced nurses, because they talk about the mentors they have and those who teach them really are the nurses, so they don't really have anyone who's holding their hands in school?
Now, this is the impact of what this strike has brought. We are relatives. Even though I may not be a parent maybe to a student, but we are relatives and we support students who are even in the same institutions. We are also in higher institutions of learning. So we are suffering. We are not attending to our classes. We should be even in other places for our clinical rotations, but we cannot do the same because it is affecting everybody. For instance, the students who are supposed to be in for clinical rotations, they are out because we are not there as their mentors. We could not want a situation that when they are going in for a theoretical exam, they pass, they graduate, but then they don't have that experience. You need that mentorship in the clinical areas so that even you go in for an employment, at least you have those skills. Yeah, so
what are these three things that the union has continued to hold on to?
First, we're demanding for a health risk allowance. A research was done at Kenyatta National Hospital. 85% of those who are risk to infection are the nurses. When a patient lands in a hospital, the first person to come into contact with that patient is a nurse. Whether that patient, whatever condition that we could want to engage at, it is the nurse who handles that patient before even a doctor or other investigations are done. So with all the risks that person has come with, it is the nurse who is the first person to come into contact with those issues. So when we're demanding for a health risk allowance, doctors were given 400%. So if they are given 220,000, why are we given 3,850? It is really unfair, and we should be given, actually we are demanding for 15,400. And then they should be in a position to provide that. Number two is uniform allowance. You cannot expect me as boss to come out with my kinyasa and go to the wards to attend to a patient. Because the first impression that you give to your client could tell a lot about yourself. So if that patient has come, he or she has that confidence that I'm going to seek help, and I'm going to seek help from a person who is qualified, skilled, and knows what he or she is doing. So when we're demanding for uniform allowance, we're demanding so that we can look decent. And in any case, if I'm working in maternity, for instance, with all those messes in maternity, and then you expect me to go home and then tomorrow I come with the same dress.
So what's the third one?
The third one is, I've talked of health risk allowance, I've talked of uniform allowance, and then the third is about the job grading. Now, with all the experiences, you've heard from a student. We have students who are undergoing their masters, even we have PhD nurses. Are these guys unskilled? We are graded at band A, whereby we similar to those guys. I don't discriminate anyone when it comes to his or her job. But when you grade a nurse as a semi-skilled, somebody like one sweeping the roles there, it is really unfair. We are skilled, we are professionals. So those are the three issues that we're demanding. If the government is ready and willing, then they should move with fast, and then we go back to our workstations and we help the suffering of these Kenyans.
The three fundamental issues. Jones,
Yes.
you've mentioned that for 4 months, nothing much has been happening,
Yes.
professionally speaking, for
Yes.
student nurses across the country. You've given an example of KU, you've given an example of Meru TTC.
Yes.
But let me take you back to when doctors were on strike. We saw the student doctors join them in the strikes because they realized that this is also affecting them. Why the silence from the student nurses across the country?
First of all, I want to state that we as students are fully in support of this strike. For the past few weeks, I think we have been on strike. It's only that the media has not covered us much. And also to state that we are taking another approach in this fight. We are taking a much reasonable fight. We are drafting a petition as we are speaking, and we intend to push it further in order to have our plight addressed.
A petition on what? Just give us more details on that.
We are drafting a petition to address the challenges that the student is facing, all the issues that I've talked about in the petition, and once the draft is complete, I think we'll make it public and you'll have a look at it.
Do you think the issues, the three fundamental issues that Boaz is talking about are legitimate reasons to be on strike for 126 days?
Yes, of course. When you look at the three reasons, all of them are aiming at improving the healthcare. They are aiming to improve the delivery of healthcare to the citizen. So I really think the three critical issues that we have narrowed down to, we have narrowed down from 7 now to 3. And now those three things are very critical, and I think the government, the county government, and the relevant stakeholders should really consider them in order to end this deadlock.
Boaz, there have been reports that a number of nurses have been going back to work, and there also have been reports that some county governments are getting into negotiations and deals with the nurses there. Have you had any of these reports of nurses going back to work?
Now, Akisa, the strike was called by the General Secretary. And according to the law, it is the General Secretary, Seth Panyako, who is to officially call off the strike if there is any. So when those counties are saying that they have signed a return to work agreement, now for instance, promotions. Promotion, this is a fundamental right of every worker. It is automatic that you should be promoted after every 3 years. It is there in the law. It is there for everyone to see. So when a governor comes that I'm in a position to just promote you out of nowhere, in any case, any promotion comes with a financial implication. And it is said that any financial implication that has to be budgeted for, has any governor come out clearly and say that these are the financial implications and are stable before the SRC to say that now this is an objection, it is correct, you go ahead and implement those promotions. That is a case of bribery, if I may use the right word. You cannot bribe me on a right that I'm supposed to get. If I'm due for promotion, I should be promoted. Redesignation. Guys have gone to school, they are back to, you should grade somebody to where he or she is supposed to be. So these are some of the rights that we should be enjoying. Unlike when somebody says that you just go back to work and then I will give you this. That is one way of robbery, and we are not ready to go into those traps.
I remember when doctors were going on strike last year in December, nurses had joined in. But at some point, nurses got into negotiations with the government and they went back to work. And the country had this impression that the nurses' issue had been sorted out. What happened?
The strike was called on 5th of December.
Yes.
Then we went out. And then when negotiations started, we were advised that go and get recognition agreements with each county, so that the process of formulating a CBA could begin. The union saw it twice. They negotiated over nursing service allowance that we were given. And then we decided, let us suspend, not call off, suspend the strike so that counties can get their recognition agreements, and then they go back to the table to conclude whatever had remained. Yes, that is how we came to suspend the strike. We went back to work. But within those dates that the courts had given for the conclusion of the CBA and signing and implementation, They were overdue, and the government was not on record and was not willing, well, neither the COG. And that is why we are up to here.
So what's the way forward? I want us to wrap up.
The way forward is like our General Secretary said, and I want to appeal to the President of this nation. Even when you're a father and your kid is mature and has gone out and he has his or her own family, and you've seen that he's messing somewhere, as a father, you can still go and correct. So even if health was devolved, he is still the father of this nation. He has the mandate, he has the right to come, sit with the union officials. What are the issues? These are the issues. Let them discuss, let them be agreed. We go back to our job stations and we help those Kenyans who are suffering. The Kenyans who are suffering, I'm a Kenyan. I'm not from Tanzania, neither am I from Uganda. The suffering that those Kenyans are undergoing, I'm also undergoing them as a Kenyan.
Was Jones parting shot as the student leader. What is the way forward for you?
Yes, I just want to, as my colleague has said, I just want to appeal to the CEO of this country, Mr. President. It's time that he stops and looks at this issue and save our students, for we are suffering a lot. I want to also appeal to the relevant actors, the Council of Governors, the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, the Ministry of Health, and also the legislature. They should come up and show an act of good faith in order to end this deadlock and save this country. Politicians have spoken many times and have said that nurses are important in this country. And it's time that they show action. They put action into the words.
All right, gentlemen, once again, thank you very much for joining us here on KTN News Desk. On my immediate right, Jones Osoro is the treasurer of the Kenya Student Nurses Chapter and the chairman of the Student Nurses Association at the Kenyatta University. And Boaz Onchari is a nurse as well as the chairperson of the Kenya National Union of Nurses, the Nairobi branch. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. The nurses strike 126 days, and from what we've heard from the General Secretary today, Seth Panyako, they say they're not going back to work. They will not attempt to go back to work until some of the concerns they have raised are addressed.